We're talking National Football League here on the Two Deep NFL podcast. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports. I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. A lot to cover tonight. 49ers blowing up the Cowboys. Are they definitively the NFL's best team? Is Dallas the NFL's most overrated team? The Bills lose another defensive star. Matt Milano goes down. Can they still be a Super Bowl contender? What is Bill Belichick doing to his legacy with getting beat 72-3? In his last two games combined? Somebody thought it was over for him. Burrow and Chase went off on the Cards. Is it all fixed in Cincy? Relevant question, I would think. The Jets slapped around Sean Payton. Can they still make the playoffs? Is there anything left with Sean Payton and the Broncos? Should the Vikings trade Kirk Cousins? Does Jonathan Taylor's 3-year, $42 million deal, what does it all mean for running backs now that he did get paid? What are we looking for in week 6? We cover it all right now on the Two Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the Two Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Two Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Two Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Two Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And good evening. If you're catching us live, you understand why I'm saying good evening here on the 2D podcast. If you are catching us via the podcast, remember you can be a part of the conversation. Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, available on all of those formats. If you'd like to be a part of the conversation, got a lot of folks already lined up in the chat room. So thanks to everybody joining us here live tonight. And let's dive right into it. 49ers, Cowboys, much valued, much hyped, did not live up to it. Total destruction by the San Francisco 49ers. Jeff, is this the conclusive proof that they are, without a doubt, the best team in the NFL right now?
Yes. I don't think it's even close. I think that they are playing at a level where you can see that what happened to them in that NFC Championship game last year when they lost Brock Purdy early and Philadelphia handled them after that is still hurting them. You can see that they are very much of the belief that they can win a championship this year. And with Brock Purdy playing quarterback for them, they're in a pretty good window to make a run at a couple other Super Bowls, and they got all the pieces. I mean, you look up and down that roster, they have stars everywhere. Their defense is talented, it's hungry, it's got the reigning defensive player of the year, and quietly, Brock Purdy's become an MVP candidate. You know, I do the MVP rankings for my column, weekly column, and I finally said, you know what, I have to give him his respect, that he's not just somebody who's along for the ride. He is legitimately a weapon for this team. Kyle Shanahan is using him adeptly, and he's 20 for 21 last week. He's 4 touchdowns this week. I just think in that conference, Philadelphia's got a shot, but I think you're going to see them playing in Vegas for the championship.
How about it, Eric? Yeah, as much as it pains me, I should point out we got some love in the chat room. 2 authors, Jeff Chadiha, author.
That's right.
Now author as well. I hope there's no pressure on me to write a book because that ain't happening.
I would help you write a KC Sports like tell all, but when you're retired, Petro.
That's right.
Trust me, I got some stories to tell.
Behind the music, 810.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah, it's kind of a boring story though.
What Curtis Seabolt really does behind the glass.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fit for the airwaves, but anyway, congratulations on the book. By the way, we We should have a segment just, about the book and get like what are the highlights of the book at some point. Real quick, since we did bring it up, where do people get it?
People can get it on Amazon. They can get it wherever they buy their books. Just Google Football Analytics with Python and R with my last name. You should be able to get it. Amazon's the easiest place, but they do sell it directly through O'Reilly, the publisher, as well. But appreciate that. I think the Niners, Jeff, are easily the best team in the NFC. I think the Eagles have sputtered to a 5-0 start. They were better this week against a Rams team that I think is salty. I think that they're much better than I thought they'd be, which is really good. I have them number one in my power ratings. I have them a half a point better than the Chiefs.
Can we acknowledge this from Matt? Because this is what I wanted to give you props on this. Matt said now all it takes is for the Chiefs to steal the Niners Super Bowl this year, which is a phrase you coined. I heard you, back in PFF days, coined that phrase, and I love it. I use it all the time. Who has a dog barking in their house?
That's me.
Got it.
I stayed home from work today. Well, I just worked from home today. I told my wife I forget every single time how annoying my second dog is. Sorry, honey.
It's all right.
You can hear
it's the human side, but I love that term, right? Like we feel in 19, you and I discussed it. The Chiefs stole the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl. They were the team that looked like the dominant team. Are the 49ers, and you don't always get the Super Bowl stolen. Sometimes the dominant team wins it. This is their Super Bowl to be had, and I'm with Jeff. It does kind of feel like they've got some staying power. This isn't the Cowboys after week 2, even the Dolphins after their 70. 49ers are doing it on both sides. They're doing it against good teams. It does feel like they're probably going to be the team to beat if they're healthy, which they never seem to be.
Yeah.
But if they're healthy, they do look like the team to beat.
Yeah, I think that's the big one, right? The Chiefs can withstand injuries to basically anybody but Mahomes. The Niners, there are fulcrums in that roster for which they can't survive if those guys get hurt. Kittle is one of them. Trent Williams is another one of them. Brock Purdy is another one. And I agree with Jeff. Like, Purdy's not who I'd pick to start a franchise, but if I was Kyle Shanahan, I'd be more than satisfied with what Purdy's doing. I think we should, have a podcast maybe in the offseason about splitting quarterbacks into 2 camps, much like free and strong safety, where like you have like the Mahomes, Allen, those guys, and then you have like the Cousins, Purdy's of the world that are kind of trying to execute an offense. He executes that offense incredibly well, and that's just something I don't think people can deny anymore. McCaffrey's another one where he's been playing like the best back in football, but he's had seasons where he's only played a couple games. And then defensively, I think their secondary isn't great, but they kind of rig the system by having a linebacker who is so good at carrying the things upfield that they don't matter as much. So they're a good team. They have to stay healthy, which to your point, Petro, it's always been a hard thing.
Yeah. Deebo Samuel plays the physical style, gets hurt. George Kittle gets hurt. They're not getting any younger at left tackle either. There's been a lot of games where it's like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? So that is a big part. The Bosa brothers seem to be able to miss a game from time to time on a regular basis. But that's true of every team. No. Right? Are they deep, Jeff, or are they just a great front 22?
Well, it's hard to know because they haven't had to rely on their depth yet. And if that front 22 is as good as we think, or as good as they've looked, look, they're going to have injuries like everybody else does. I just feel like what makes them impressive when I watch them play, and certainly the Dallas game was a game, somebody mentioned in the comment section, where you're expecting a close game. Those two teams have played close games in the playoffs. They seem to be in the same neighborhood. And when you dominate a team like that, I don't care how, who's missing or what happened or what the past says or how many injuries you've had before. It's like, that's just a lot about who you are. It was just like when the Chiefs went down to Tampa Bay last year and played the Bucks and spanked them. And it was like, okay, wow. All right. They're ready to roll. Like, this team is, Tyreek Hill or not, is ready to go. And that to me was the kind of game where you look at it and you say, yeah, whatever you think, every team has flaws, every team has weaknesses, but their strengths are so strong that when they get it rolling, and it's the thing, going back to Purdy, and some people said MVP candidate, you don't know how the NFL works if you're questioning that. Like, if you're the quarterback of the best team in the league, you're going to get votes for MVP. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
And he's doing things that MVPs do as far as numbers. He's not just throwing for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and managing the game. He's putting up big numbers.
Jeff, is it sustainable though? Like when we looked at Tua last year, Tua was at this time last year, everybody's talking about Tua is going to break records. And I know he ended up getting hurt, a few times, but like regression is the rule, not the exception. And this is like a Niners team that always they're always good, but this is the first time they've been maybe since 2019. And I think even this team is better than the 2019 version. Like, is this sustainable, for the long haul for them?
Well, let me ask.
What's the long haul? Yeah, go ahead.
Like the whole year, like are they? Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Well,
year in and year out.
Eagles are still 5-0, right?
Yeah, I think that what they have around them on that roster, the next 3 years, they will be a house. And that kid playing quarterback, I don't want to make the Tom Brady comparison, but it feels like Kyle Shanahan found a quarterback in the Walmart, discount section and plugged him in. And the kid's a lot better than we thought he was.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's good. The question I would have is, along the depth and the injury question, is it what we find our teams maybe aren't necessarily that deep. That's where the great quarterbacks shine. When you start losing guys, when you got to make up for your left tackle being out, can you make up for your left tackle being out? When you lose your number 2 wide out, when you lose your number 1 tight end, is that when the greatness of the quarterbacks end up? Is that why quarterbacks win? We see teams that don't have necessarily the Hall of Fame quarterback, and maybe Brock Purdy's going to prove to be one. And if he is, they're going to win championships when he's on that rookie contract. But maybe what we see is the reason why we get these great runs. But then when the attrition starts to happen, the quarterbacks shine even brighter at the very end. I think the 49ers ought to get a stretch where at least most of their stars are healthy at the end. They're kind of do that. They're not running Deebo Samuel like a running back. They've said, okay, we got to get him. They seem to be more focused on, at least early, it's very early, but focused on, we need these guys healthy at the end. And if they get them to the end healthy, then I think they are hell on wheels. But I do kind of think the quarterbacks shine brighter when all the attrition happens around them. That's maybe where they've gotten. We know when Brock Purdy went down,
and we've seen teams like Los Angeles with the Rams, teams that have the Falcons, up until the Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2016. Like we've seen teams sustain this for the balance of a season. So I agree. Like I think if everybody stays healthy and no one figures out that scheme on it from a defensive standpoint, and no one gets hurt, they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Again, like there is always something that goes wrong with the Niners. Last year it went wrong in the conference title game. Previous years it's gone wrong. Like in 2021, they still made the conference title game, but Garoppolo's shoulder wasn't healthy for the balance of the playoffs, and like that limited them. I think that there's like I said, like if everything goes perfectly, that for every single team in the league, the Niners are the best team.
Yeah,
and they put safeguards in, right? I mean, that's why Sam Darnold's the backup quarterback now. That's why they went and traded for Randy Gregory. When you've got a quarterback who costs $900,000, you can go out and find some insurance policies, some places where you have concerns.
We've been so Shanahan pilled that Jeff is talking about an insurance policy. Like, don't worry, they got Sam Darnold in case something goes rad. Like that's how like crazy good this roster is.
Yeah.
The 2 Deep NFL podcast is brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've solved them since 1994. Why risk accidents and liabilities in your parking lot when you don't have to? Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete take care of whatever parking lot problems you have. They're online at GannAsphalt.com. Is Dallas the most overrated team in football, Jeff, after what you saw?
Starting to feel that way. And I know they took a big hit when Trayvon Diggs went down. I saw the stat or read it someplace where they were number 1 pass defense in the league. Yeah, when he was playing, now 30th, which is eye-opening. But it also comes back to your favorite quarterback to bash. I think you've got a thing with Cowboys quarterbacks, but Dak Prescott has got to play better, and he is. If this team ends up, pooping the bed again and not getting anywhere close to the NC Championship game, it's going to be hung around the necks of Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. It's the thing that is becoming more apparent with them offensively. First 2 games of the season, you didn't have to really worry about showing anything offensively because they were just mauling people, the Giants and the Jets, neither of whom had any kind of offense, anything resembling an offense. But then when you got to the situation where they actually had to start performing offensively, they haven't been able to deliver. And I know that the Arizona game, for example, was one of those games. Last week was one of those games. They got to win in between that. But at the end of the day, it feels as if Mike McCarthy doesn't have his fastball when it comes to play calling, and his quarterback is not making great decisions with the football when he's got to make plays. And that's a bad situation to be in when you're trying to catch the Niners, the Eagles, the Lions. There's a lot of teams now, I would say, I trust more than the Cowboys in the NFC.
How about it, Eric? Are they the most overrated team, the Cowboys?
No. I mean,
and who is?
Dak is a privilege about 5 times a year, and he was a humongous privilege on Sunday night. But we've seen him have these games before where he's like 2 years ago when he came back from the calf. They got like blown out like 30-0 by Denver at home. They just have these games sometimes. And granted, the Niners have like owned them. So that's another factor. I think that they'll be fine. Now, they have a tough schedule. They have one of the easier schedules up until this point. They have one of the hardest schedules moving out of this. So maybe they don't rebound. I think, the Eagles are pretty much a safe bet to win the division. But whoever comes out of the NFC South against Dallas in round 1 of the playoffs is going to be the same thing we saw last year, where Tampa Bay is going to get money in the betting markets, and the Dallas Cowboys, because they're uber talented defensively and they're pretty good on both lines of scrimmages when healthy, I think that they'll at least win a playoff game. The question is, can they beat the Eagles or the Niners in the playoffs, or even Detroit? And I think that is, I think that public consensus right now doesn't think that. So by definition, I don't think they're overrated. I don't think anybody's looking at Dallas as a Super Bowl contender anymore. And I still think they have a shot at it. So by that stretch, I don't think they're overrated. I think they're properly rated, and they're properly rated as probably the 3rd best team in that conference behind San Francisco and Philadelphia. And there's a gap between San Francisco and Philadelphia, and there's probably a gap between Philadelphia and Dallas and Detroit.
Do you think Dallas is better than Detroit?
Dallas would be favored on a neutral field against the Lions. Yeah.
Jeez.
So who is most overrated?
Who's the most overrated team in the league? Good question.
I mean, if you're like, I hear what you're saying when you say, well, they're 3-2, so people aren't as high on them. Okay, I get it. Maybe the question is like from what the expectations were going in, but I mean,
I think the Saints are the most overrated team in the league after last week.
Who's chirping Saints?
Saints.
Like, if you're going to tell me that the Cowboys are appropriately rated based on what people are saying, nobody's talking about the Saints.
They just beat the New England 34-0. Plenty of people are.
Who thinks New England? What did that do to their resume?
Okay. Who's the most overrated team in the league? The Jaguars, probably then.
Okay.
People think the Jags are going to walk away with that division. I'm not so sure.
Jeff, who do you think is most overrated?
I think it's Dallas. You can make a case for Baltimore, but
people think Dallas sucks now after they got blown out the other day.
But the whole point is that what were they before when week 1 was over? What were people saying about the Dallas Cowboys? What are they saying now?
After week 2, I mean, the parade route was being designed in Dallas. I mean, it was like I was like slow. I had a shouting match with Curtis on the air, nicest guy ever, and he's telling me the Cowboys would beat the Chiefs. I'm like, you've lost your mind. Like, Dak Prescott will wet his pants late in games like he always does. And I don't hate Dak, by the way. I just think he's Alex Smith being paid like Patrick Mahomes. And that's a fundamental issue for the Dallas Cowboys. I'll give you one that you haven't mentioned for most overrated, because at 3-1, they look good and they get a lot of love. The Seattle Seahawks. They're not going anywhere in the postseason either, because Geno Smith is not going to win a close game. Close games are going to be played in the playoffs. Your quarterback's going to have to make plays. I have less confidence in Geno Smith than I do Dak Prescott. I think the Seahawks, no one's really talking about them. So it's a hard thing to say right now, because we've had enough games where teams are kind of starting to get appropriately looked at. But, the Seahawks at 3-1 look kind of good, and they got a lot of love when they were on national TV. I can't remember Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night. When was it? They crapped
the Giants.
Who cares? Who
Monday night.
cares?
They're Detroit won a pretty good game.
They're a good salty team, right? Like I'm not saying they can't win a playoff game, but they're not winning 3 in a row.
I mean, Seattle is.
They're not going to have a record to only need 3. They're not winning 4 playoff games in a row and winning a Super Bowl.
But Seattle's a 3-point underdog to Cincinnati this week. Like, they're properly rated.
Well, we're not talking about just a betting spread. We're talking about public perception.
Okay. Well, I think public perception thinks Dallas is ass now after Sunday night. So, like, by definition,
no. Yeah.
I guess it's a battle of which way you're looking at it. I get where you're coming from, Eric. All right, the Bills have lost Matt Milano. Jeff, is that it? Are they done as a Super Bowl threat now? Tre'Davious White and Milano done?
Big blows. I mean, I feel like Milano's a bigger blow because they really played almost most of 2 seasons without Tre'Davious White and got to almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs a couple of years ago when he wasn't playing. But yeah, Milano is the heart of that defense and one of the most underrated linebackers in football. And so when he went down, people talk about player safety and all this stuff, man. These games in London, and I don't know, the Bills flew over there late, and there were some discussions about whether they were tired and worn down. I don't know what the surface was like, but for him to go down over there, it's tough. It's really tough for them. And Von Miller was supposed to be coming back into the fold. Didn't play in the second half of that game or in the fourth quarter, probably on a pitch count. But again, they're going to have to ask a lot of the people around those guys to make up for that now. I just think it's hard in this league to lose star players. And when you're losing 2 of them in back-to-back weeks, that really takes a toll on your defense. They lost Miller and Micah Hyde for most of last year. Their defense wasn't the same. I would expect they'll still be good, but they won't be what they were in the first 4 weeks of the season by far, but not even close.
I am going to tell you, Eric, it is an absolute crock of shiznit that the Bills had to go over and play the Jags after they had been in London for a week. That's a joke. Now, I get the flip side.
Yeah.
The Jags give up a home game every year in London, and then they take their turn to play a road game. What do you want to do? Ask them to fly over there twice? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not a good situation all around. I understand, but like that's ridiculous. That sucks. If I'm the Bills, I'm kicking and screaming about getting set up that way because I saw it coming. I love the Jags in this game. I'm like, no way. They've had a whole week over there already before, and you guys. And what did Buffalo roll in?
Yeah.
Like I know Kansas City's going out. The team that I cover, they're going out Thursday before the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you go out Thursday before, and the Jags have been there a week and a half. Come on, I mean that one's pretty easy for me. And they seem to kind of get rolling finally in the second half. Well, their offense did. The defense didn't stop anything, but it's I mean, I think that part's ridiculous. So I'm not as down on the Bills. I do think Milano sucks because I listened to 2 years ago. My buddy Sal Capaccio, who we've had here on this podcast, the sidelines for the Bills, and as they were getting ready to play the Chiefs, he's like, Matt Milano's back. They're undefeated with Matt Milano. Milano. Listen, he probably overrated him, but Sal knows football. He used to coach.
Well, they're signaling the fact they let Edmonds go and kept Milano. The middle linebacker is pretty important to the betting market generally, about a half a point, which is a lot for just like a generic player that's not a quarterback. So that it does affect them. I'll say this though. Their offense got in their own way on Sunday. I think that they'll be fine. This is one where, I think Soren, you said it, like elite quarterbacks make up for these things. So Josh Allen is, to me right now, second best quarterback in the league behind Mahomes. Like, I think that they'll overcome it, but it won't be easy. We're a couple days removed, a couple weeks removed from them beating the Miami Dolphins by 28, right? A team that's basically waxed every other team that they've played. So I'm nervous about them. I think losing White, losing Milano hurts. But they're still a big time contender in this conference.
Jeff, what do we think about Bill Belichick's legacy? I bring this up every now and then as a topic, but now it's been really ugly, 72-3 over the last two games. And I'm looking here real quick for the little sheet I did on exactly what his record is without it. There are lots of people put different things out there. I think sometimes they forget that he did go 10-5 with Matt Castle that year. When Brady went down after the first game, I think people, don't dig all the way down and show all the numbers, but it's very pronounced how much worse he is, without him and without Tom
Brady.
And he's not even competitive, right? Like that's the part. It's ugly right now for Bill Belichick. Is this killing his legacy?
Well, what it's doing is reinforcing the fact that when you're the all-powerful being in your own franchise and no one else can tell you anything about what you're doing, you have no guardrails. Sooner or later, what's the saying in Batman? You either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're seeing Bill Belichick become the villain. And he's still, for my money, the greatest coach in NFL history. The problem is he's far from being a really good GM anymore. And he is. And this started back when Tom Brady was in his final year there. And you saw the Chiefs play them in the playoffs. What's the playoffs? No, they played in
November and beat them.
In November and beat them. But you saw like Brady was throwing the football to guys we never heard from before and guys who are out of the league now. And that was all really the result of Belichick spending the last 2 decades, outsmarting people and finding ways to win with guys who weren't that talented and saying the Patriot way, the scheme, the strategy, all this stuff matters more than talent. And they got drunk on that. And now you're looking at a team that doesn't have a whole lot of talent on offense, still good on defense, but the quarterback is limited. The weapons around him aren't good. The offensive line stinks. I've said for the last couple of weeks that Mac Jones is taking way too many bullets for what's going on over there. And he's an easy punching bag. But end of the day, Bill Belichick put this together. The decision he made last year with having Patricia and Joe Judge be co-offensive coordinator, all that stuff happens because nobody can tell you no. And I've seen this happen with Mike Shanahan. I've seen it happen with Mike Holmgren. I've seen it happen with John Gruden. It happened with Andy Reid toward the end of his run in Philadelphia. When you give guys too much power, sooner or later, they screw it up.
That's a great point. By the way, for the record, I found my sheet. Without Tom Brady, he's 75-95 with 3 playoff seasons in 8 years, and he's 1-2. 2 playoff seasons in 8 years, and he's 1-2.
3 winning seasons, right? The 2 playoff years.
Yeah, 2 playoff years.
One was in Cleveland, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We went with Vinny Testaverde to the playoffs in Cleveland. Whoa. He went 10-5 with Matt Castle the year Brady had blew out his knee. He's gone to the playoffs once. Mac Jones' rookie year, they made it to the playoffs. They were 10-7 that year. He's got 7-9, 10-7, 8-9, and then right now sitting at 1-4. Listen, I used to bring it up about Andy Reid versus Bill Belichick, Reid with McNabb versus Belichick in his days in Cleveland, and he was in Cleveland and bad owner. And listen, it's undeniable. Like, if you want to call him the best ever, I'm okay with that. But I wanted to acknowledge there are chinks in the armor. He's to me, it's a discussion now. It wasn't a discussion, and I said at the time when Tom Brady left, this guy wants to go down as the best ever. He should walk now, because every day he goes beyond this, his reputation will become less. Yeah. If fatty talk show hosts can see that and make that call, then come on. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem with Belichick is he's so good at learning lessons. He's so good at adapting. He's so good at moving. The Ted Washington bit early when no one was running a 3-4 except for the Steelers and the Panthers, and then moving tight ends back when they traded Moss and they went with Gronkowski and Hernandez, and he's learned all the wrong lessons since Tom Brady left. All the wrong lessons, right? He's been conservative when everybody else has been, woke as far as fourth downs and timeouts and all that stuff. He's gone to the caretaker quarterback when the real way you win is with a Patrick Mahomes type. He's learned all the wrong lessons over the past 3 years, and that is not characteristic of who he's been as a head coach the majority of his time. And so it passed him by. I'm going to bring this up. This is the season that they should have had in 2020 when Brady retired, when Brady left to go play for Tampa Bay. The fact is, Andy Reid bottoming out and going 4-12, and the Eagles saying we don't want to see this through with you has changed Andy Reid's career. And the fact that Belichick, because he's chasing Don Shula's record, was not willing to do that has been, again, he's learned all the wrong lessons over the past few years.
And I'll go back to what I said. He should have tanked that first year. I mean,
Yes.
just cleared the roster because Trevor Lawrence was on the board, a guy that you knew was a true 1-1. Maybe he's not John Elway or Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck, but he isn't, Jared Goff either. It was unquestionable. There was one guy that was going to go number one, and he had the perfect opportunity to do it. And these kind of things irritate me a little bit, Rhett. He can still coach. He's drug these crap rosters to average records. Just can't get the quarterback right. He's 75-95.
He's also responsible for the roster.
Exactly. And getting the quarterback right is a big part of the equation, right?
Part of how he coaches is the roster he's chosen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you can't divorce those two.
Yeah, and he should have never let Brady leave in the first place. That's really the bigger thing than taking is recognize that Tom Brady can still play. That's where he got so high on himself that he was like, we're bigger than you.
And according to some accounts, he wanted to run him through, before the last two Super Bowl wins, he tried to run him out because he wanted to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. And then here's the one that's just absolutely preposterous. Andy Reid has Mahomes. He didn't win before that either, except for the 5 conference championship games he appeared in, the 1 conference championship. I think of 14.
The 2 seed he got with Alex Smith here. What are we doing? He won 66% of the games Alex Smith started. What are we talking about?
That is, I assume, I'm hoping that the point is just to, stir the pot.
I think the point is that I understand what he's saying, which is that most coaches, the longer they coach, as Eric was alluding to, the more likely their tricks aren't going to work. Like Bill Belichick hasn't found a new trick to overcome rules changes, to overcome. He's never drafted receivers well. I mean, that's a fact. You look at his entire history in the NFL, the receivers that worked out best for him, Randy Moss was a guy he traded for. I mean, for the most part, most of the guys he's gotten were guys who were ordinary. And he turned Julian Edelman into a receiver who was a quarterback in college. But for the most part, most of these guys were dudes that didn't work out, especially the high picks. So what you're seeing is basically the quarterback can't correct that. And now those flaws, those mistakes aren't getting erased.
But isn't that part of the equation as well? Like the personnel side, I get it. Like, okay, Belichick, the GM's getting in the way of Belichick, the coach. Except for when you achieve to that level, you have to know how to use your power. And Andy Reid, I know he didn't stop John Dorsey from getting fired, because if he didn't want him fired, he wouldn't have been fired. So maybe he didn't fire him, but he didn't stop him from being fired. But he went to a guy that he knew, that he liked. And whatever power Brett Veach has, which I think is more than people give him credit for, I think we would all agree, and I think Brett Veach would even say yes. If we butt heads, Andy Reid is going to get the final say. I don't think they butt heads. And that's to Andy Reid's credit, is that as he's achieved the power, which he didn't really even have when he got to Kansas City, he had to cede some of it to Dorsey. And as he's gotten it, he has not misused it.
Yeah. But Dorsey, that's the point I'm making, which is having John Dorsey helped the second half of Andy Reid's career, because John Dorsey drafted Chris Jones. John Dorsey drafted Travis Kelce. John Dorsey drafted Tyreek Hill. John Dorsey drafted Patrick Mahomes. Made the trade to get him. And so there's a lot of things that if Andy was running the show, I don't know if he's making those same picks. And he was smart enough to learn that it's better to have somebody else doing that stuff that I can actually talk to, but not trying to make it my own. People forget, like, that dream team he put together and all the moves he made towards the end of his run in Philadelphia. He was making some big mistakes.
He technically was not the general manager at that point.
Well, he had a lot of influence on.
Yes, agreed. For the
Yeah.
very same reason I'm talking
Yeah.
about what's going on here. But just
Yeah.
for the record, he had ceded that. However much power he did have, whether that was a paper title.
Howie Roseman has a lot more power now than he did when Andy Reid was over there.
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase went off. Is it all fixed in Cincy, Eric?
I mean, the Cardinals are plucky. I think more about Jonathan Gannon than I did before the season. I'm really bullish on this team now, but it's the Cardinals and they're supposed to suck. So good on you, Cincinnati, for going in and covering a 3-point spread against the team that's going to pick first overall this year. But I'm going to reserve judgment.
You're picking the Cardinals to pick first?
They will, Jeff.
Over the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
What about the Bears?
Over the Bears.
Bears are beating Minnesota this week.
Eric
at
said
home,
too much.
no
Eric had
Justin
too much
Jefferson.
NyQuil.
Yeah, the no Justin Jefferson is big. I mean, I do agree with that. But
the thing is like we saw the Bears were. I mean, Greg Gabriel, is that his name? Yeah, was like, oh, do you think the Bears are going to? All you geniuses who said the Bears would tank, are they going to lose the rest of their games? And then they lost the rest of their games. Like some of these plucky teams after 5 weeks look like they're. James Conner's already out now for 4 weeks. A guy who's been really good for them. Buda Baker's been out for a decent amount of time. This team's going to fall apart. It's been plucky and competitive, and we're happy for him. And I like Jonathan Gannon more now than I did when the season starts. But make no mistake, this team's picking first. And
what have the Giants been?
I mean, the Giants have the same number of wins and a tiebreaker over the Cardinals. So I think it's, the Cardinals want to pick first. That's the other part.
I don't think it'll be long before the Giants want to pick first. I mean, the Giants blow.
I think they would love to pick first.
The Giants are worse because they've got a massive. I mean, they may not pick first, but they've got a massive bad quarterback contract on their hands. That's a disaster. And we did have Flatlander at. How about Carolina? I mean, that's kind of a rough situation too, where Frank Reich supposedly wanted C.J. Stroud, and the owner wanted to go get.
A midget.
Bryce Young. That by the way,
he wanted a Muppet. He wanted Kermit the Frog playing quarterback for him.
Yes. He went out and why am I drawing a blank on the kid's name?
Bryce Young.
Well, let's throw Noah's comment up here for a sec. Eric just said Dallas is better than the team he picked to go. Yes, these things. Like structurally, the Detroit Lions have a better shot at the 1 seed, given that they're already freaking 3 games up on everybody else in their own division. Whereas the 49ers have the Seahawks, Dallas and Philadelphia are in the same division. It's about the structure. It's also not fun to pick the best team for both of these as well, right? And there are injuries and things that happen. The fact is, the Cardinals are going to pick first this year. Everybody can poo-poo it and all this kind of stuff because they're competitive. The Bears went into New England last year in October and kicked the hell out of the Patriots, and then did win a game the rest of the year. Like, we're 5 weeks into a season. It's pretty short.
Okay.
Eric is very optimistic about the Giants for some reason. But to answer your question about the Bengals, we got way off point with that. They're back. Joe Burrow looks healthy. Whatever he did for the past week with his calf is working. They are going to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase might end up setting records the way this is working out, but for them to be able to get him to a place where they can run their entire playbook again was huge. And I agree, the Cardinals aren't world beaters, but they got to play the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Bills next. And to get that win in that moment was huge while the Steelers beat the Ravens. They're 1 game out of the lead in the AFC North. I think they're in a really good spot to get back to where they were.
I think this does bear noting. Carolina is giving up their first-round pick, right?
The Carolina Panthers don't have the incentive to
So
tank.
the Bears have 2 shots at 1-1.
Well,
2.
but also Arizona has Houston and their own pick.
Houston's not going to be the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, look, we've said these things a bunch of times before. I mean, the the Jets were supposed to be the number 1 pick team for that whole Adam Gase year, and then they went around, they messed around and beat the Rams in Rams. So this thing I'm telling you, the Cardinals are picking first.
Okay, let's all make our prediction. Eric says AZ. Jeff?
Giants.
I thought Carolina was going to be so much better than this, but and
they're pretty close, yeah. But
the Panthers have an easy schedule, though.
So actually, I'll go back. So Carolina can't pick first. So are we talking about who has the worst?
Well, I mean, I would give you credit if you said Carolina and the Bears had their pick, but I mean, off math, if we're going to go with the fact that they have Carolina's pick, I'll take the Bears because they have 2 shots.
Okay. I mean, the Giants.
You take the Giants? Okay.
The Giants are horrible.
Yeah, they are, but they have real football players. They have Andrew.
They
Thomas,
do.
They have Leonard Williams. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, not DeMarcus Lawrence.
But they don't have an offensive line.
Lawrence.
They don't have a real quarterback.
Yeah. They played 3 primetime games and scored 15 points.
Your case against the Cardinals and for the Giants is that the Cardinals have a real quarterback in Josh Dobbs, and the Giants have not a real quarterback in Daniel Jones. We gotta start taking
playing the same teams.
Fair point.
They both played Dallas, and the Giants lost by 40 points. The Cardinals won.
The Giants beat the Cardinals. What are we doing? Like the transitivity of who beats whom? It doesn't do this. Like, no.
You have great points against the Giants. I'm not pushing the Giants to be 1-1. I do think they suck. But your points are valid. Cardinals at Rams, at Seahawks, Ravens at Browns, Falcons at Texans, Rams.
They don't win any of those games. Let's be honest. Like, they don't win.
At Bears. At Bears.
The Bears just dick kicked the Washington Commanders in Washington on a short week, like 20 points.
As we all know, if you can kick a Richard with the Commanders, then hey, that's living proof that it's all fixed.
You want
to hear the Giants schedule just real quick? At Bills, Commanders, Jets, at Raiders, at Cowboys, at Commanders, Pats, Packers, at Saints, at Eagles, Rams, Eagles.
There's not that many good teams in that list, Soren and Jeff.
I think Arizona's trying to tank. By the way, and can I just say I watched USC against Arizona. Watched the whole game because I just wanted to really pay attention wholeheartedly to Caleb Williams. He's definitively 1-1.
Oh, he's amazing.
Definitively 1-1. I
mean, Drake May is the CJ Stroud of this draft, and Caleb Williams hasn't been in a draft since maybe Lawrence.
Yeah, I think I really like that kid. He's awesome. I will say that. All right. Let's pick up the pace here a little bit. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations. No commissions and in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Call Gann Asphalt and Concrete today. Find them online at gannasphalt.com. The Jets slapped around Sean Payton. Can the Jets still make the playoffs, Jeff?
No, but they'll make it interesting. They've got a couple winnable games coming up here against the Giants. They got the Eagles this week, but they got the Giants and the Raiders somewhere in there in the next couple weeks. They can hang around 500, but they got a tough schedule. And I just, this hope that they're holding out that Aaron Rodgers can come back from an Achilles. It's just, that's a lot. They have to thread the needle in a lot of ways to get there. I'm impressed by how they're playing with their run game. Breece Hall getting it going, and the defense playing at a high level, but they just got too many tough games coming up against good teams to make this work.
Any shot, Jets? Jets are in the playoffs, Eric?
I want to see it so bad. I want to see Aaron Rodgers have to show everybody how full of crap he is about his Achilles and all of his holistic medicine. And I want to see him go out there and have to put his money where his mouth is. I don't think it's going to happen unless they go and trade for Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill or somebody like that. I think that that's a key. They could absolutely do something like that. But I agree with everything Jeff said. Very encouraging on defense, very encouraging running game. Zach Wilson was still terrible this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a little too. I think they should be trading if they want to. Kirk Cousins seems like the fit. Bring him in. He's just got the 1 year left on his deal. A lot of the baggage of the contract stays with the Vikings. It seems like are you wanting to go or not? Like
there's a no trade clause in his contract that I think is an issue, but yes.
But don't you think he would take it? Like should the Vikings be trading Kirk Cousins, Eric?
I mean, this is a guy that takes Tuesday off as an NFL quarterback. I mean, the thing with Cousins is like if this was his last year in the league, I don't think he'd waive it. I think he'd try to just continue to be like, and again, I'm not trying to degrade the guy, but he's like a family man, work-life balance kind of guy. My issue is like if he wants one more payday, if he turns down an opportunity to go play for a contender-ish team, it's going to look bad in the markets. It's going to look bad in the markets where he's trying to get paid one last time by an NFL team.
By the way, just because there's a little question about quarterbacks go in a lot on Tuesdays. In fact, most of them do. Yes, that's the day off for the team, but most quarterbacks are in on the game plan session and everything that's going on. And that's why it was such a big thing in the Netflix show.
Yeah, Pat's not taking Tuesday off, boys.
Yeah.
Like this is.
In fact, Mahomes even said today his longest days are Monday and Tuesday. Like that's when the game plan's going in. And he said, and then I can get some more rest and rest up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, yes.
I don't mean
like,
Kirk Cousins is a good, as Chiefs fans saw on Sunday, Kirk Cousins is a good, not great quarterback. He also just works there. Like that, there are levels, and so like Kirk makes a lot of sense for the Jets, but Kirk would have to accept the trade, and I don't know if that actually would happen.
By the way, I got to give some props. Come on, Daniel Jones takes Sundays off.
Love that for him, by the way.
That's right. I think Tommy's behind my pick. Overall.
All right. Cousins, do you think that they should move Cousins, Jeff?
They should, given how the season is going. But as Eric said, no trade contract, no trade clause in the contract, and it's just hard to make those kind of moves at that position in the middle of a season. I kind of laugh when people talk about this because even if they did do it, to have him jump into another offense after being in Minnesota for as long as he's been and be able to play at a high level, it would take, I'm guessing, 2 to 3 weeks before he would feel comfortable doing what they want in that system. And it's just, at that point, you get a couple losses, season's over anyway. So I feel like they're better off just riding with Zach Wilson and just seeing if Aaron can come back. If not, take your lumps and come back next year and try again.
So if he did get down, you're saying it'd take a couple of Tuesdays to get him up to speed?
Yeah, at least a couple of Tuesdays. But think about this, Soren, too. What would you have to – people talk about the trade like there's nothing involved. You'd have to give up something to get him. And so what would you give up to get him? I mean, this is a team that still is in a pretty good place to be able to build a roster and have a chance to chase the championship next year.
I think Kwesi has shown that he'll take less, right?
No.
I actually don't know the legality. Like, could you trade a conditional? Could you end up trading the second round pick? Right. Could you end up can you end up having the swap of the conditional with Rodgers and have that written into the trade? Maybe. But I think like 2 third-round picks would get it done, right? Like one this year, one next year would get it done for the Vikings, I think. But I could be wrong.
Jeff, what does Jonathan Taylor's 3-year, $42 million deal with the Colts say about the running back position now?
Here's the blueprint. Try to get paid. Like, you got to play the game in a very, very hardball type of way. It's we talked about Chris Jones in our last podcast, the way he was playing in the offseason. He didn't get what he wanted, but this is what you have to do in the NFL. And if you're a running back, you really have to do it. And I've had guys who used to play in the NFL say to me, Jonathan Taylor was holding in. They believe Austin Eckler is doing the same thing with the Chargers. One guy said he told me point blank to Saquon Barkley, you better not come back on that field until you got a long-term deal in place. And then Saquon was like, well, that's not me. It's not who I am. I'm not that kind of player. He's like, they're playing chess upstairs, man. And you better start realizing you got to play the same game as them. And so I give Jonathan Taylor a ton of credit because it was ugly at times. I'm sure it was very hard for him when Jim Irsay was, going on Twitter and talking about what they were going to do. All this stuff is negotiation. And so ultimately he got to a place where he could get what he wanted to, and that's what it's going to take for other running backs to get the same kind of money.
Yeah. No, it was successful. But again, he's getting 14, right? He's not getting wide out money. He's not getting edge rusher money. It's still, yes, he got the 3-year deal, but it's still down at the running back level. $26.5 million guaranteed basically means it's 2-year deal. But if you're healthy and playing well, it'll keep you for the third.
Well, the other important point to be made here too, he did this before his contract was up. Right, he did it going into his last season, not after he played his last year. And they had the option of franchising him, and he had to play this game. He said, "I'm fighting now," which I think is important to mention as well.
Is this right? Was the Le'Veon Bell? Was that the offer he turned down? Was it about the same?
Yeah.
But I know the average running back price has gone down.
Yeah.
Marginally, not a lot, but everyone else's is going up and it's going down.
I thought Le'Veon was like 4 for like 64 or something like that with like
70. The report was a $70 million deal.
But it was like the guaranteed money was the holdup, right?
Yeah, 33 guaranteed the first 2 years and 45 45 over the first 2 years. So yeah, Tommy Moe right there. Yeah, I mean, like that tells you all you need to know about the running back market, right? The fact that Kamara and McCaffrey's contracts are still the number one, and they've been signed for years now, is crazy. Also makes Le'Veon Bell look kind of like an idiot because that he probably should have accepted that deal.
You think? Yeah, he should have accepted it. All right, let's wrap with this. What are you looking for in week 6? Jeff, you got something in particular?
Can Justin Fields go 3 for 3 in great games? As Eric mentioned, they got the Vikings this week, and look, he's playing great, not good, over the last couple of weeks. 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, 68% completion percentage versus 58% in the first 3 games. I feel like he's turning a corner. I'm not completely bought in yet, but I love the fact that he's playing at a high level.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, Dallas, San Diego on Monday night. I think Dak's going to light the thing up. I think it's a classic Dak, like throws for 405 game. Austin Eckler back for the Chargers. Herbert off a bye. I know he had that like Steve DeBerg like injury the other day. So I'm excited for that game.
I'd like to say, and I'm intrigued by 49ers Browns. Heavy hangs the crown. When we've had the best team, they've all spit the bit. Yeah, nobody was saying, "Oh, look out for the Cardinals, Cowboys." The Browns at least have a salty defense.
The market looks like Watson is questionable though. Like that thing's moved out to +6, and there is weather. Like that's a weird game threat.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like it. But don't we have to love Bill Belichick going out to Vegas to take on Josh McDaniels and the Raiders? Yeah. I mean, isn't that what we want to see? Like that. Just these two geniuses,
the Suck Bowl. Yeah,
2 geniuses matching wits that are out there
with Tom Brady in the owner's suite, right?
Tom Brady in the owner's suite. Jimmy Garoppolo going up against Bill Belichick. I mean, come on. It writes itself, doesn't it, Jeff? You're the writer. Well, right. Goes Eric now.
Kobe Myers, Chandler Jones watching from wherever he's at.
Yeah. Mark Davis.
Too soon.
Mark Davis cussing out whatever woman that was next to him the other day, last night. That was weird.
Bob Kraft arriving. There's lots of
Where does Bob Kraft stop on the way, or is that too soon? Is that too?
I was just going to allude to it. You went all the way there, so okay. Plenty of places once he gets to Vegas, I'm sure. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the 2D podcast. Hit that like button, the subscribe button. It don't cost nothing, but it does a lot of good for us. And don't forget about our friends again, Asphalt and Concrete, the best. You can get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will help save you money down the road, cut down on accidents, keep your parking lot safe as possible, let you focus on your business. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, solving parking lot problems since 1994. You can find them online at gannasphalt.com. For Jeff Chadiha, who finished his bicep curls, somebody mentioned during the podcast tonight from the NFL Network. Eric Eager, we appreciate it, Eric. People don't know it, but Eric from Sumer Sports playing hurt today, and he gutted it out and got it done. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2 Deep NFL Podcast.